They were all sat by fires, real fires, looking into the glowing embers and the flames flickering up, imagining many things, many people, many places. But the people who were called the Selkups in Siberia tell a tale about fire. Thousands of years ago, the Selkup lived on the high plateau, in the snows. In each tent there was a fire. And deep one winter, the men went out to hunt and left the women back in the tents, the great big tents where families lived together as groups. In one such tent, there was a woman with a young baby, no more than 6 months old. She was feeding it. The weather was harsh outside, and everyone was hunkered down. But after 4 days, they realized they needed more firewood. So the woman took her baby, put the young boy on her back, and went out into the snows towards the woods. She fetched a huge branch and dragged it across the snow back into the tent. Closing the flap, she sat down by the fire and snapped off a branch and threw it on the fire. It flamed up and the warmth hit her face. It was a nice feeling, and she took the heat, took the baby out and laid the baby on the ground near the fire. And just then the flames leapt up again and a spark hit her child, who began to howl and scream. "What have you done?" she said directly to the fire. "Look, my baby's hurt. How dare you?" And she looked round and there was an axe, and she took out an axe and she struck the fire down and down. "You will not hurt my baby. You will not hurt my baby." And she looked around again and she saw some water in a bucket, and she scooped some out and threw it on the fire. And to her amazement, the fire went out altogether. A cold crept into the tent, and the baby started to mizzle and wail because it was so cold. She scooped it up and put it under her clothes. It was freezing to the bone, frozen to the bone. "That's strange," she thought. "I just threw a cup of water on the fire, and it's gone out completely." She looked round and found her flint and went to try and strike the flint and relight the fire. But it wouldn't light. It wouldn't light at all. "I'll go and ask the others whether they have a fire." She wasn't quite sure what was happening. She crossed the line between the tents, and as she lifted the flap on the next tent, she watched as the fire died down completely and disappeared. And the next one, exactly the same thing happened. The fire just melted into nothing, and a coldness hit the tent. And this happened in every tent she visited, until she came to the elders' tent, the old lady's tent. And the old lady watched as her fire disappeared. "What have you done? What have you done?" I got angry with the fire. I struck it with an axe and I put just a little bit of water on it, and it just disappeared. And now everywhere I go, the fires are disappearing altogether. I will come to your tent I'll light your fire. I know the way, said the old elder. She shuffled out across the snow into the young woman's tent. The baby was still nizzling under the home, cold and miserable. There was a coldness to the tent the woman had never experienced before. Deep and bone-shattering. The old elder approached the fire and took out her flint and tried to strike it. But nothing happened. That's odd, she thought. That's really odd. Then she leant in and tried to strike a bit of pine curls. And then there was a small glow in the fire. And she looked, and it wasn't a light, but the glow got bigger and bigger and bigger until she could make out an old crone sitting cross-legged in the centre of the fire. I am the fire mistress, said the old crone. You have upset us. You struck us with iron and then with water. We have taken away fire from your people. But we will die, said the old lady, and she looked at the younger woman with the baby. We will die out here without fire. Our people will die. How can we get it back? How can we get it back? The crone just sat there, cross-legged and glowing. And then she said, I will give you fire, but there will be a cost. I want a small baby. The younger woman started crying. My baby, for fire. For fire. We will die, said the elder. You must give your baby. You must give your baby. Do you understand? By then, the cold and the darkness were extreme. And the young woman, crying, said, I know what I must do. And she handed the baby to the crone, and the crone took it up within her, smiled and said, know this, your people must never strike the fires with iron and water again, and if they do, we will take it away again. And with that, she disappeared up the smoke hole with the baby, and they were never seen again. The young woman started crying for her baby. You have given your baby for the village, for the people, said the elder. And as she said that, the fire leapt back into life, and the warmth spread through the whole tent. The people will know that fire was given back at the price of your young son. To this day, the Selkup people, when they look into the fires, they see a small baby rising up and disappearing through the smoke hole, knowing that he had to be given so that people could survive. That is my story.